Hey, in this video, we're going to explore how to respond compassionatively, contemplatively, and evocatively in an informal group supervision setting. After the case presentation, we usually pause and hold what the presenter has just shared, asking everyone if they have any clarifying questions to make sure that we've all understood what has been shared in the focus. Then we take another pause again to listen before our group exploration time together. During this exploration, group members create a container. It's like a picture I like to hold of a sacred space where the presenter can be held to further explore their experience. And I like to picture this container as holding compassion and contemplative atmosphere and an evocative space to allow them to be held in respect and reverence. So you're familiar with these three terms as ways of being in a direction room. So let's review them again in this group context. This can refresh our awareness of how being contemplative and compassionate and evocative really does help us notice the presence of the sacred together. And it enables the presenter to feel safe as they develop new insights in this environment. So first, I'm going to begin with the contemplative because I think this really is the foundation for all of our responses in group supervision. The word contemplation in Latin means the act of looking at. Contemplation, simply understood, is just taking time to look at something from various viewpoints. An analogy I find very helpful is like when you're going to a museum with your friends and you come upon a piece of art together. Usually you don't start talking about it right away. Instead, you usually walk around the piece of art, you take steps to lean in or view it from a different vantage point. And at some point you might begin talking about it. But you don't really try to grasp the whole meaning of the artwork all at once. That's kind of missing the point. And so is the same case with a contemplative stance in group supervision. It's a time to begin to appreciate what's being offered to us. And in this space, we prayerfully attend to the indwelling spirit and support each member as they sense God's desire in the present moment. This time is usually surrounded by a lot of silence that allows for the Spirit to speak to our hearts. And that way we can be willing and open up further to one another. Janet Ruffing says that the quality of contemplation invites all of us in the supervision experience to linger. And we linger with the presenter's experience of God. In this way, the supervision session is prayer. And our response to the felt sense of God is already praying in us. Each person then is encouraged to speak from this silence when they have a sense of what God might be offering. So together, in group supervision, we move in and out of this flow and rhythm of prayerful silence and speech, listening and response. Moving in this contemplative posture does mean that we look and listen before we speak. It means that we notice instead of interpreting or analyzing. It means that we move at a contemplative pace, allowing for silence. It means exploring the various threads from various viewpoints, like we would a piece of art. Indeed, the supervision case is a piece of art. So this is how we will respond contemplatively. Now let's explore responding compassionately. Compassion literally means to suffer with, which demonstrates a beautiful image of coming alongside someone in their pain. I also love the Greek word for compassion, splagnizomai, which means to be moved deeply from the gut. Compassion really does come from our very center. It's not on the surface. And the response to someone requires depth. So offering compassion means that we welcome the other person with respect and reverence. We listen with an open heart, and we're willing to be impacted by what they share. It means temporarily suspending our own judgment so that we can appreciate another's perspective on the situations that are very different from our own. It means we genuinely are concerned about the needs and sufferings of the other, and we offer gentle responses to edify them. To be able to offer this, though, we have to first have received and internalized God's love and compassion for ourselves. This compassion enables us then to respond to another person in a compassionate way. Janet Ruffing reminds us by saying it this way: the only mercy we have to offer the world is the mercy we have received from God. Third, let's look at the evocative stance. The etymology of evocative means to call forth or to summon. So to respond evocatively means not merely we just don't listen to what a presenter has to say, but it means to call forth something from the presenter. We actually elicit the more that is in their story. This calls for a deeper engagement and an expanded awareness. So this means offering our noticings and questions that open up the conversation rather than closing it down. Some examples of what might close down a conversation are when we try to interpret what something means, or we try to fix a problem or rescue the presenter. These responses rely heavily on us and our own understanding, whereas evocative responses free us. They help us stay attentive just to God. The evocative orientation in our group supervision is very much an exercise in the present moment. In our listening and responding, we are hoping to evoke a felt sense of God in the present experience. So we're not trying to solve a puzzle. We're not trying to just affirm one another or, be a nice presence. We're actually trusting God in the present moment to make space for mystery. Truly evocative responses will move us away from certainty to sacred curiosity, which will open up the conversation and invite further exploration. They will help us to notice and describe our experience more fully, offering language to articulate and strengthen what is new and emerging. And evocative responses will help us to stay with God and what God seems to be inviting, stirring, evoking during this group time. So now I have a video of a group responding this way, contemplatively, compassionately, and evocatively, to a presenter and their case. As you watch this, see what you notice about the three things I described here in the group exploration time.
Sarah, one of the threads I heard you pick up was, why does this case still have energy for you? And so I'm curious, when you think of that word energy, where do you feel it in your body, or what image comes to mind around it?
It feels like a stretching towards, like my arms, like are reaching out towards it. Yeah, it doesn't feel still. It does feel like a forward movement, a leaning in. Like a pulling. I mean, he in the session talked about a pulling toward. I suppose I feel that too.
you have an image of what it is you're being pulled towards? Or is it something that's unknown?
Actually, so yeah, maybe pulling is not the right word. I actually feel like I'm reaching toward, not being pulled toward, like I'm reaching toward, yeah, like a longing. I'm thinking of a pothos plant, and I think pothos means like lengthening. It was in a book that I read, Bittersweet. Um, like a stretching towards, a reaching towards. And what am I reaching towards? Something that I want. Um, there was a sense of real like joy in his sharing of all these different threads that were kind of going on in his life. Um, and a real invitation to the present moment. I wonder if that's what it is for me, kind of a reaching towards the present moment, as if I'm not in the present moment.
So I wonder, Sarah, if, as you mentioned, your own sense of joy as you watched him in the session doing this, I'm wondering if there's an emotional sense to your reaching forward. Is it reaching for that joy, or is there another sense of an emotion that you feel in your longing?
Honestly, it may be even a little bit of envy. Like, I want that too. Like, oh, actually, I know there's like a difference between envy and jealousy, according to Brene Brown, and one means that you don't want the other person to have it. That's not it. Like, I'm happy that he has it, and I want that too. And I can't remember. I think envy is the one. Actually, I don't know. Um, yeah, there is kind of an emotional quality of, I'm so happy that you have that, and I want that too, and I want to reach towards that.
Sarah, what is the it or the that?
Mm. I think it's the joy in the present moment.
Hmm.
He was sharing kind of all of these uh, beautiful threads that were seemingly disparate. Something with his work life, something in his personal life, in his kind of communal faith life, and yeah, so seemingly disparate threads, but there was joy and possibility in the present moment when he was kind of aware of each of those threads. I think that's the it for me. The joy. The joy of pulling the different threads of my own life together. But also, yeah, staying in the present. Yeah. There's something about being in the present moment that I feel maybe I'm lacking right now. And that's why I feel this kind of reaching.
Sarah, I noticed you repeated the description of reaching out 3 times with your hand, reaching out first time, second, reaching out. But the third time you mentioned reaching out, you already knew what you're reaching out for, the present moment. How did it feel when you were able to name reaching out to the present moment?
Yeah, it felt honest. I felt like, yeah, that he used the word pulling, and I thought that was it for me at first. And yeah, checking that word, that actually wasn't the right word. So reaching felt like that was more honest.
It's more fitting for you.
Yeah.
I noticed, Sarah, too, that when you talked in your reflective paper about watching these movements in your directee, you noted that your feet were on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually noted in your body that you felt kind of that your feet were on the ground. And it just struck me as a moment of presence.
Yeah.
And so I hear, just noticing with you, this longing to be in the present moment, but then a very real noticing that you were in the present moment with him.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels true too. This session, I did feel very present in the session itself. And that's why it actually did feel quite joyful in the moment. And I reflected on that in my CRF. But going back to it, still feeling like, oh, maybe there's something more for me there. Is there something in my life now that is not reflective of that real groundedness and joy in the present moment? But you're right. In the session, I did feel very much grounded in the present.
Well, I'm glad you just asked that question, because that was the next part I was going to ask was, is there something that you're aware of in your life that doesn't feel as grounded as that moment that you would like to explore?
I think going back to the image, I'm actually, because I mentioned the word or the image, pathos, like the plant, I keep having plants in my head right now. And yeah, I'm not a gardener. I actually really wish that I was. But it feels uh, like maybe there's too many plants. I actually do have a pothos at home. I was gifted it. And not too long ago, there was a lot of dead leaves on it. And I was very worried that it was dying, because that's my typical MO with houseplants. And I started pulling off all the dead leaves and pulled out a whole, like, separate plant that was dead. I was like, how long has this been here? Like, it's not rooted at all. And actually, just this week, I looked at it because it's right in a sunny window, and there's new leaves that are growing, like brand new. And I was like filled with joy. And so I forgot your original question, but I feel like it's somehow tied up with that image of the plant, that maybe there are things that are hanging on that just need to be pruned. Different things in my life that feel like it's crowding my day, and preventing me from growing in the present moment. Yeah, that feels really true.
So you feel there are things that need to be pruned so you can open yourself to that new that's being offered to you to be present
Yeah,
to.
I think that's the invitation. I don't have a sense of what those are, but that feels like an invitation.
I hope that was a helpful demonstration for you of what it looks like to respond contemplatively, compassionately, and evocatively in a group setting. Just a few more encouraging words to close. Even as we try to listen and respond in this way, Scripture reminds us that we only see in part. We're just one pair of eyes and ears. We're only one heart and mind and imagination at work in this group exploration process. So we ultimately have to rest in the posture of unknowing. Marianne Bumpus said that the supervision process requires a respectful unknowing, a willingness to remain within God's hidden mystery. I wonder if we can let this awareness free us so that we can come just as we are and respond just as we are, offering whatever we receive in the present moment as a contribution to the slow, steady, and deep work of God. My advice to us as we embark on this group supervision journey together is to relax. When in doubt, just take a deep breath and remember what Ignatius of Loyola beautifully said. The Creator is already at work in the creature. Spirit is present to us, and we can respond freely out of this grace. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to try this together.